Hello, everyone. Welcome to Conversations with Sekani, a podcast for people in their 20s who are trying to figure out life and not get lost along the way. Today's guest is Joni Marie Iraci, author of the award-winning novel Vatican Daughter, a gripping story that takes readers behind the walls of the Vatican, bleeding suspense, history, and a mother's relentless search for her child. Her work explores power, secrecy, and lesser known historical events, including the real life papal kidnappings of Jewish children, all woven into a compelling and thought provoking novel. Thank you so much, Johnny, for coming to my podcast. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, so I want us to start from the beginning, the story behind the story, basically. So, what
Oh, okay.
inspired you to write Vatican?
Well, the story behind the story. Um, I grew up in a strict household. My mother was very religious, and I attended Catholic school for 12 years. And I saw the hypocrisy going on, preaching religion, preaching one way and behaving the other way. So sorry. Turned off. Um, and anyway, so I even as a young child, I saw the hypocrisy, but you couldn't come home and talk about it, of course.
Mm,
And then as an adult, you're kind of indoctrinated into believing what you're told. And so I believed my children should be taught the same. So I didn't like the way they were being taught. So I volunteered. Well, I kind of was ensnared into volunteering, and they didn't have enough volunteers. And nuns have a way of entrapping you. So I was entrapped to teach. So I taught for 8 years. I was good at it, but I didn't teach the way they liked. So I had a lot of fights with the pastor. So I had fights with this pastor who turned out to be corrupt. And it was in the thick of the scandals, and I didn't have any, at that time, I didn't have any inkling that I would be a writer. I was a registered nurse and I was raising children. So I always wrote and I always wanted to be, but I didn't think it was within my realm of possibility. So, it's never too late to follow your dreams. So things happen and they come out of nowhere. So that's very important. And look at me, I'm the embodiment of it's never too late. So we used to go to Italy every year. And so one year, I forget what year it was, I was standing in St. Peter's Square and I was looking straight ahead at the Basilica. And I thought, gee, I wonder what's going on in there now. Because there was a lot of corruption and a lot of scandals and a lot of moving around of pedophile priests. So the muse hit like a lightning bolt. Beep. And I
mm,
got the title, just the title. I wonder if what would happen if a girl was involved because you only heard about boys and things like that. So I got the title, wrote a few notes down, had no idea what I was going to do with this, and I put it aside for 10 years. While I
mm,
went back to school, I wrote another book, Reinventing Jenna Rose. That was my thesis at Columbia University, where I was light years older than everyone. All of my classmates were in their 20s, and but it was a wonderful experience. They helped me with technology, and I helped them with life. So, some
mm.
of their stories were dystopian worlds and all this outlandish, whatever. And a lot of them wrote medical stuff. I'm a retired registered nurse. So I helped them with that. And we became close friends and it was fun. And I fed them because college students are usually starving. So I was the mom. Anyway, I graduated and I went back to Italy in 2019, got COVID when no one knew what it was. I was very sick. And before it hit the news, what was going on. And I came home and I sat for 8 hours a day and treated it like a job. because, what could you do during that time? Everything was shut down, or at least in this country. And so I started writing this story. So I had no idea where it was going. I never know until I sit down in front of the computer. So I wrote and I researched. And when you research, you go down these different paths that you didn't expect to go down. I love the research part. So I researched and I was researching Italian Jewish last names for a character, and I came upon this little known story of papal kidnappings of Jewish children in 1859, which was absolutely the truth. I won't go into all the details, but it happened. This child was taken because the Jews were put in the ghetto, and it was before Italy was united, so the Pope was in charge, and he had the Jews sequestered, and they were wealthy merchants and hired illiterate Christian servant girls to work on the Sabbath because the Jewish girls couldn't work. And this one child was sick, and the illiterate Christian servant girl saw that parent sitting vigil and assumed the child was dying and baptized the child. So that was a story that I had no idea, and most Jews don't know about it, and most they kept it very quiet. So I ran with that and I weave it into the story. So the story just took off, and I've done a lot of interviews, and people ask me, like, oh, is the Vatican after you? I think they're too busy. They don't know I exist. My book, this book was voted best conspiracy thriller of 2025. So that was exciting. Of course, sales aren't that great, but readership in this country is down 60%. So, but I still keep at it. I never give up. So I think that's an important lesson that I learned through my life, that if persistence, I hope, pays off. We'll see, but not yet so far. But in different ways. Like, I don't know. I think people in this country, at least, they measure success by the dollar, how much money you have or how much, but that's not always true, I think. I mean, I tend to agree with that to a certain extent, but I help other writers, and right now I'm reviewing somebody's manuscript, and I'm helping them get it ready, and I'm not asking for money, so I that in itself is rewarding, especially if it's a decent manuscript. So that's it in a nutshell, So my first book is set in New York. That was my thesis, and I wrote a sequel to that that's just sitting on my computer. I'm not sure what to do with it, but the second book in the Vatican series is in production, and that will be out in November. So it continues the story, and I'll give a little hint to your listeners. The Pope gets caught. So he does it again, and he gets caught this time. So, the thing about this book is it's fiction 100%, well, sort of 100%, but it's also very plausible. People think, oh, did this really happen? And I made him an American Pope because I never thought we would have an American Pope. And now, lo and behold, there's an American Pope. So let's hope he behaves better than my fictional Pope. So anyway, yeah. So that's it. And I may not always be writing. Like they say, you should write every day. Like everybody has all these rules. You should have a method and you should have this, but that's not reality. Life gets in the way, but I'm always thinking about it. I have a website. It's my name, Joni Marie Iraci, IRACI.com. And there's some stories on there about distractions and how a writer can get. I wrote that on a plane. We landed in Halifax because somebody was sick in Nova Scotia, and I sat there for 2 hours and banged out this story. So you never know. You never know when you're going to get hit with material. So that's and not just with writing, if you have a dream, I mean, there's always a way to, may not happen overnight, but if you find a way to pursue your dream in some fashion, you'll get there as long as you don't give up. So, it's important. And I mean, there's this, I heard a college counselor once say there, I think it's probably different now, but there you have 15 jobs in your lifetime and 7 career changes. So, just because you think you're locked into a path, you're not. You can always change and redirect yourself and change your trajectory. I had an interesting trajectory. Like people were amazed that I was brave enough to go back to school with
Mm.
young people. But you know, I had a motto, if you laugh at yourself first, it's disarming. Really, people won't laugh at you if you're the first one to do it. They don't know what to do. So that's what I that's what I used to do. And I'd make fun of myself and then they'd be like, maybe they did behind my back, but I never heard. So yeah. So that's what I did.
All right. Wow. It's such an interesting one actually. And I feel like I've learned from this story. And what I learned first is never give up, right? Never give up. And then secondly, I learned that it is never too late, like you
No,
said.
it's not.
But
Trust me, I lived in the suburbs of New York when I was going to Columbia. I had to take 4 trains each way. That was like an Olympic event. I don't know if I could do it now, but back then I just did it, I just did it. And then you sit in the classroom, and but you do, you keep your eye on the ball, as they say. You keep your eye on the prize, and then you get through it. So that's what
um,
that's
okay,
important.
and yeah, finally, what I learned, I also took from your story is you should be willing to give life different chances. You should be willing to give chances to your life. Your life would take a different trajectory, right? So what I mean is some people who just believe this is what they want to be in life and they go for it and they are not willing to try other things. So you
Correct.
never can tell. You have to give room for other things in your life because you don't know what you might do eventually. So yeah.
Exactly. So before I went to, took this road, I, was a nurse. I quit, I retired because I had raised my kids and my husband was home. He was hardly ever home. So that was I didn't want them to be with babysitters. So I was home. I went to culinary school. Oh, that was brutal. I couldn't stand it. And of course, the chefs were younger and they acted like, it was French. So they acted like the president of France was coming to taste my food. And that was a nightmare. So I knew that wasn't going to work. That was too ridiculous. So I saved lives and they're carrying on crazy over tomato sauce, So that was, yeah. And I got picked for jury duty and accepted to Columbia on the same day. So I had this grueling case. I was a juror for 3 months, federal criminal court, but I loved it because it was material. I had written 35 pages of a court scene for my first book based on TV shows. I had never been in court. And I had to rip that up, and I got all the information. So when the case was over, the judge came in, and his wife was a writer. How about that? So he answered my questions and helped me. And I said, this was wonderful. And my fellow jurors, were mad at me for that, but because they missed work, but I look at everything as a reason. There's always a reason for things that happen. You would struggle, you have your struggles, but there's always a reason, there's a plan, I think, hopefully. So
Yeah, you are right. Actually,
anyway, I'm an old lady now, so I keep at it and I'm still doing it. So,
all right. Okay. So yeah, I believe you have a message for people out there, right? So you've earned MFA at 65. So what would you say to people who feel it's too late to, pursue something new?
Well, it does take some bravado. You have to be brave and you have to not care what everybody thinks of you. I mean, that doesn't last long because you become part of the fold. So, initially they're looking at, oh, like, who's this old lady or but don't listen to the noise, just keep your eye on what you need to do. I got a lot of respect eventually from the kids, not all of them. Some of them were brainiacs who knew everything, but the professors, they were my age and they hadn't had any kind of career. Had writing was their career and then being adjunct, being professors, which is, wonderful and published, but a lot of them, some of them were my age. Some of them, at least I went to undergrad first, and some of those professors were younger than my children. That was kind of unnerving. But, we had a good rapport. I joke. I use a lot of humor.
Mhm.
So there's no humor in academia. So I would make fun of things, and they appreciated that. So, you find your niche, you find your way, your niche, whatever, you find your way and you just let it work out and you don't give up. It's not easy. It wasn't easy. I had to read 1,200 pages. I didn't have to, but I did. I did the work. So 1,200 pages a week I read for classes, like to the point my eyes were bleeding. But the young don't always do that. They're reading on their phone during class, or I don't know how I don't have the ability to sit in a seminar and discuss a book that I haven't read. I'm not good at faking it. So, but that's a good that's good if you could do that, but you don't get anything out of it if you do that. So, my advice would be just to explore the possibilities. If something doesn't work, then that's it. You don't pursue it. You find your way, and if you're young, you have time. Don't pay attention to what other people say. I grew up with, you can't do that. Oh, don't be ridiculous. You can't do that. That was the mantra I heard from, my parents. And so I ended up proving them wrong. Not that they cared, they didn't. But so, you know,
Yeah.
I got
So,
award. I'm an award-winning author. So there you go. So yeah.
okay, wow. So yeah, thank you so much, Journey, right?
You're very welcome. You're very welcome.
I feel
Good
like
luck
you've
with your
inspired.
good luck with your
Yeah.
podcast.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. You've inspired young minds actually to, always go for what they want and also never give up. So thank you. This
They
conversation
can
was
they can contact me through my website if they want to hear more or they need some encouragement. I'm very happy to respond. It's Joni, Joni Marie Iraci, Iraci.com. So there, just put a little contact and I'll respond, of course.
okay. So yeah, I'm going to drop that website in the show notes. Yes, I will do that. And
Yeah.
finally, I have this section, right? It's called the rapid fire segment.
Oh, geez.
I know it's
Okay.
something you can do actually. You do well. All right, so starting now,
Okay.
writing is
Writing is my passion.
okay. Creativity requires
Persistence and be calmness. Let
okay.
it flow.
Okay. Courage means
Courage means not paying attention to the noise around you and just putting one foot in front of the other.
all right. Reinvention feels like
Oh, reinvention is exhausting, but it's the only way you get where you need to be.
all
So,
right. Okay, and finally, legacy is
legacy. Legacy is different things to different people. Some people, legacy is money or monetary or things, but to me, legacy is the example that you've left behind for others.
okay. Wow. So thank you so much, Joni. This has
Thank
been
you.
amazing.
The book is available on Amazon and all the other, places, Barnes and Noble. So
Okay. All right.
thank you very much. Thank
All
you
right.
so much. You're
You're
awesome.
You're welcome. And yeah, to my listeners, thanks for tuning into Conversations with Sekani. If this episode sparked something in you, make sure to share to someone you think might need this and also subscribe so you don't miss out on new episode. Thank you, Joni. Do have a wonderful day.
You
Bye.
too. Thank you. Bye. Bye.